Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Southern U podcast. My name is Taylor McMurtry. I'm joined with the man, the deer legend himself from AL Deer, Mr. Matt Brock, also of Habitat.
Habitat First Properties.
Yeah, Habitat First Property. I almost got it backwards.
Yeah,
Habitat
Properties first.
Yeah, and I've done worse. And Mr. Jeremy Ferguson, Wildlife Consulting Services, and broker for Tut Land, man. How y'all been? I feel like it's been a minute since we got together.
You know what's changed since the last time we were together?
Not much.
Rain.
It has rained. That's true.
A lot of it.
And it's not stopped.
Mm-mm.
I'm here at our house. Been trying to get the yard work, the grade for the yard, and all that kind of stuff finished up. Trying to get guys out here, and it's just been a dust bowl,
Rain's helping you get all that dirt from the high spots to the low spots.
It's washing it in for you.
That's what I was going to say. They dumped 2 loads of topsoil out here finally, and it's rained every day since.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know when we're going to get this done. But yeah, we have it's been a minute since we got together, but we've got a pretty cool show. This is one that I'm particularly excited about. I like hearing from people that actually listen to what we put out there, and they ask questions, and we do our best to try to give answers for it. And if this is your first time maybe listening, we kind of specialize in habitat improvement, wildlife management, those sort of things for the Southeast. There's a lot of resources for the Midwest and things like that. You get a lot of advice on what to do and how to do it. And the only problem is some of that stuff is tough to apply in the Southeast because you just don't have the same climate. You don't have the same soil fertility. And so some of that stuff doesn't work. Terrain's different,
Deer are different.
Deer are different. That's right. Turkeys, everything. I mean, you've got different subspecies and those sort of things. So we just felt like it was a missing piece of a puzzle, for Southern leaseholders, Southern landowners, to have a resource where they could, kind of get some information about how to properly manage and go about improving their habitat in the Southeast. So that's kind of what our niche is, and it's not to say that if you're not from the Southeast that you don't gain any knowledge by maybe listening to us, but at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of rednecks from Alabama that like to talk outdoor stuff. So, and if you don't know this too, Matt and Jeremy are both biologists. They both have experience working the state level, doing this kind of stuff for state agencies and things like that. So it's not like we just pulled 2 random people off the street and said, let's talk about habitat stuff. These are people who actually have experience and the academic side too. So
yeah, don't pigeonhole us there too. We've both been in the been in the private sector for quite a while.
That's true. Yeah.
And me before my little jaunt with the state.
Yep, that's true. Yep. Yeah, they both have independent.
I didn't last very long. Matt handled it pretty well for a few years.
I stayed as long as I could.
Yep, I understand. But they do both have their own independent consulting businesses where they help landowners do the things that we talk about on the podcast. So just want to say that if this happens to be your first time. But today's episode is the listener request kind of Q&A episode, volume 2. We did this earlier back during hunting season, and it was just really well received, good questions, and we always love to hear from you guys. And I wanted to say also, just because we happen to be doing an episode on your questions today doesn't mean that you can't ask questions, at any time. Feel free to comment on any post that you see, anything that you see on any of our social media outlets. Shoot us a DM. You can shoot an email to info@thesouthernu.com, and we'll be glad to get back with you there. I mean, we love hearing from you guys, and it's encouraging for us that we get to hear from you because we know that you're listening to us, and we want to be a resource for you. So feel free to shoot anything that you got, questions our way, and we'll do our best to answer them. But we're going to, I guess, jump in unless you guys got any updates or anything we need to update the folks about.
I'm just glad to be thinking about something besides math.
I bet you are.
Yeah, I don't like math. It's hard. Definitely not my strongest subject back in the day or today. Not much has changed. But I guess we can just go ahead and jump right into our very first question. And if you guys don't know this, these guys are not teed up. In other words, they have not seen the questions that you guys ask or really any of our podcasts, any of the episodes. They are put on the spot to kind of give their just initial reaction and answer those the best that they can on the fly. And I think that's what makes some of our stuff moderately tolerable. Makes it good. So
It's true reality TV.
yeah, there you go. There you go. So question number 1 here, it says, what is the best method for planting a new field after being mulched?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Golly.
I'll leave the people who have asked the questions out. They remain anonymous, but I guess, and again, we're sort of having to project a little bit onto some of this stuff because we don't know specifics. We don't know where this field is.
Well,
we don't know what kind of soil it has. So we're having to sort of just shoot from the hip, so to speak. But,
and that was going to be my first thing is I would really want to know what was mulched. Right. Was it hardwood or pine timber? Because that does make a difference.
Yep.
In how fast that mulch degrades and the nutrients that's released. Pines, man, they can be tough. Honestly, I would, if it was my doings and it had been mulched, I'm probably going to let it sit out and try to burn that top layer of mulch once it dries before I start doing anything, and give the root masses, because when you're mulching, you're just taking off the top layer. Some of the big mulchers, they'll drop the head and they'll get your first 2 or 3, 4 inches of dirt, but you still got big roots and whatnot under the soil surface. But I would want to remove that top layer if I could. If not, I am probably going to do very limited activity in that field and just kind of do some scratching around and throw and mow and just see what I can get growing first, if anything. The way we've done it, of course, I have access to different equipment than a lot of people, but we go in with heavy tillage equipment after mulching, and we cut it and try to get that stuff turned and get that mulch layer actually incorporated down into the soil and kind of get it to break down a little faster than it is just laying up on top. But that's not always easy to do. A regular tractor and a disc isn't going to do it.
Especially rocky terrain stuff too.
Yeah, I mean
you just got all that woody material too. I mean, it may be finely ground, but it still is tough to break through. And
we've used, and a lot of people aren't going to have experience with it or even seen them. We use a roam plow for that, a big forestry plow, and you're talking pulling it with either a dozer or a 250, 300 horse tractor. I mean, you're not going to pull that behind your everyday equipment. But that's how we do it. If we didn't have that option, until I got some of that woody layer, that woody debris gone, it's kind of tough. I'm just going to try to get some seed to touch what soil's there and get something growing.
Gotcha.
Not much different as far as my recommendations on what to do. Typically speaking, if I mulch an area that is going to be a new food plot, I let it sit fallow the first year. I just let native vegetation come back, and the reason why I do that, your pines are not going to stump sprout unless they're short leaf, and that's a possibility, but you don't have a lot of those naturally around here. So you're probably going to be mulching loblolly pine, sweet gum, privet, yellow poplar, maple, and those kind of things. So I'm going to mulch it down to the ground level or as close as I can, and then let some of that stuff stump sprout, and I'm going to spray it with herbicide and put at least one herbicide treatment on it to get down in the root, because the mulching is not killing the root on those hardwoods. So I want to take care of that before I proceed, because I don't really want to establish a food plot there and then have to come in and kill my food plot to kill sweet gums or red maples.
Right.
So I generally let it lay fallow for a year after clearing, or like he was saying, topsoil something on top. What survives. It's all in an effort to build organic matter, and it takes a while for some of that woody debris to really break down, and it uses a lot of nitrogen in the process too. So it's taking nitrogen from the soil. But yeah, rarely do I mulch a site and then immediately plant it.
Gotcha.
I normally don't do that.
And I'm going to chase a couple of rabbits here. He was talking about the species mulching, but if you're trying to get rid of privet, we've talked about it a little bit before, but mulching is a great way to get the vertical structure down. If you're trying to control privet somewhere and you've mulched it, stay on top of it and hit it with herbicide, just straight glyphosate, as long as you're in an area you can use it. If you're in a wet area, then make sure you're using proper herbicides for that. But hit those resprouts in the wintertime. So if you'll hit the resprouts on privet or hardwoods or anything else, well, not hardwoods because they're not leafed out, but your evergreen species that you're trying to get rid of, if you'll hit those in December, January, you will absolutely smoke them.
Yeah.
And this kind of ties in. It's not the same, but you're almost. That was loud.
Dub it out.
What was that?
It was just a little air escape.
Okay,
that's all it was.
It's not mulching, but you're fighting the same battle as folks that go in behind logging crews and want to plant log decks. There's mulch, pine, basically pine mulch, because it's all the bark that's being ripped off those trees, limbs being broke, all piled in that one spot, and most people that have timber company leases are dealing with that. What they generally do is bring a bulldozer in and they push all that off.
Scrape it all off.
Yeah, so they do get rid of that debris, but then they've also got, the topsoil is probably gone anyway. The logging crew likely over time it has pushed that off. But if you're going to clean that up and get that debris off, it's a little more effective in logging decks. Just try to salvage what topsoil you can instead of just putting a dozer on it and pushing the first 4 or 5 inches off and making piles on the edge of your fields.
Right.
Yeah, and even with establishing new food plots, I know a lot of folks, they want a very clean field. That's fine, and I see that. If you've got several inches of topsoil, that's okay. But a lot of places around here don't have several inches of topsoil. So, when we get done with a clearing job or we're establishing new food plots, a lot of times we actually have some debris left in there because I don't want to push everything off to the side. So
pick it up by hand.
Yeah, if there's 1 to 3 inch limbs left in there or something like that, that may be something you have to remove by hand, or just get over it. It's just going to be
Right.
there, because like I said, bottom line is I'm trying to leave it in a condition that's plantable if we're using dozer or other heavy equipment. And if you scrape all of the topsoil off and you're just left with hard clay on top, it's going to be a while. It takes you years to build that back up.
Right.
And I tell people that we talk to, if I'm doing it, then this is how I do it. But if they're stumping and building new fields, use an excavator, pop your stumps. If you have to have a dozer, use a dozer. But we're using skid steers, and the rake on the front of the skid steer that we're using, I kind of drew out what guy needed to do, and Leroy that does a bunch of our work here, they built their own, and it works great for getting small stuff but still leaving the soil.
Okay.
And on several of the jobs that I've done this summer, we've actually used a track loader with a big bucket, and it's got teeth. So he'll just scrape the layer, the debris out, and it leaves the topsoil, a good bit of it.
Yeah, because like you said, if you go and just like some throw and grow or something like that on top of it, really it's more of an effort to just give the soil
Put something there.
Yeah, put
just
something
put
there.
something
Like it's
there.
not necessarily for you to plant your ideal plot.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that. Even though you don't really care what you're throwing out there, or you don't really care what's coming up, it's just trying to get organic matter started. Don't use Marshall ryegrass.
No, please don't. No.
Because once you've got it, you've got it. It's
there.
not that it's that big of a deal. Deer do eat it. It's not preferred during the time that hunting season is in. But once it's there, I mean, it's
hard to get rid
there.
of.
But it's pretty and it's green.
It is. It is. And look, sometimes you are very, very limited what you can use because of the site conditions or shade or something like that. But that Marshall ryegrass should be your very last option.
It's good for holding the world together, and that's about it.
About it. Gotcha. Well, hopefully that answers that question to the best of our abilities. Again, we're having to sort of project, and speaking of that, vague questions, this one right here is a pretty good one, if you like that. Really simple. Corn or clover? That's all we got. That's question
depends.
number 2 is corn or clover.
Are we baiting with corn or are we planting corn? I mean,
I mean, no question. 99% of the time, clover. But there's occasional, point in time or place where you need corn.
Yeah, I would prefer
you want
clover.
corn.
Yeah, both. Can both be an answer?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I guess why do we have to fight each other, guys?
Absolutely. I
Can't
mean,
we all
look,
just get along?
you've got a ton of folks, especially in more of this regenerative ag type movement, where they're growing clover between their rows of corn.
Yeah,
And I'm going to assume that this person's asking about growing corn.
Yeah. And that corn, as far from a planting perspective and what they offer nutritionally, corn is really good in the fall and winter because it's
highly attractive.
Yep, they need carbohydrates and it's sweet, and that's what they're going to go after. Clover is also good in the fall, but it's superb in the spring and early summer. You've got deer recovering from the rut. They're trying to build body mass, antler development, lactation for does. So, I think benefits-wise, you're better off with clover. But like he said, I've actually seen stands of clover and corn planted together, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And
Well,
your need for nitrogen input is greatly diminished.
Reduced.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, and I'll say this too, like, I think, again, this is me projecting, but this probably stems from what you see on a lot of like hunting shows and things like that, where in the Midwest you've got a ton, these are just acres and hundreds of acres of, of corn and stuff like that. But I think what needs to be understood about that is those people did not plant that for the purpose of trying to grow, attract, kill deer.
No.
These are farmers. These guys are doing that to make
They
money.
hate deer.
Yes, they hate
Most of
deer.
them, by and large.
So you may see a lot of that, but it was not with the intent, with deer on the mind. This was them trying to make money. So I would say, I agree with you guys. You go clover, with the exception of a few different areas.
There's so many more benefits to
Yes.
having clover, like Matt mentioned. I mean, he covered them all pretty good. And there's one thing is corn can be very tough at times. I think you finally got yours maybe through the stage that it's going to make it.
It's unbelievable. So I planted corn in early June, and we got –
which is late, by the way.
Yeah, which is late. But that's when I got my drill.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I've got some corn. I'm gonna put it out.
Your planter.
Yeah, my planter. So anyway, I planted the corn, and it came up, got a rain on it, was doing great, and then it went 95 to 100 degrees with no rain for 6 weeks.
Yep.
And it was so bad, I went and bought an irrigation system. I was like, I'm keeping this corn alive, whatever I have to do. So I got it through. I mean, it survived that time frame. Then we got so much rain over the last. It's looking amazing.
It looks good.
Yeah. So I planted some late corn, and Jeremy had a bag left over. He's like, here, go plant this. So I planted it, and I had 2 areas. One was an area that I had planted soybeans, and it was an entire failure. The deer just absolutely destroyed them. So I was like, well, I'll just go ahead and replant corn in that. And then I planted some in some new ground right beside it. So everything that I had planted in the soil that had been irrigated came up. The other just came up this week.
Just started.
So here we are, late July, and I've got corn coming up out of the ground. And
Nice.
But hey, with our daytime temperatures in the south, you're still going to get enough corn.
Yep.
For deer hunting.
Yes, I mean,
purposes.
I'll be fine as long as we get the moisture. I'm not worried about it, not producing the ear because we're going to hit frost.
Yep.
It will make it that long. It'll be fine, but we just have to have the moisture. But yeah,
Not worried about the tender shoots getting absolutely smoked by your deer, though.
No, they could.
They could. I mean, I hit them but they've also got clover on the other side of that cornfield.
Okay, gotcha.
And they are absolutely destroying that clover.
How's your clover doing through the dry spell? Did it shut down for a while and starting to just perk back up?
I will say this.
Keep going.
So I've got non-typical clover and I've got Durana clover. The Durana was toast. And it's always been known as a drought tolerant, high graze pressure, gone. Gone.
Now you need to spray it with 2,4-D again.
No. Oh, no, I didn't.
That'll do it.
So the biologic non-typical clover, I actually took some pictures this past week. I thought that it wouldn't, because it's a new stand. It's just established, and I planted it last fall. And you know how sensitive that stuff can be early on.
Absolutely.
So we hit that dry spell, and I was thinking, man, this stuff's just not going to make it, and it's not going to be a good representation of what non-typical is actually capable of doing because we just don't have the growing conditions for it. Y'all, it has come back with a vengeance.
That's awesome.
It's 3 inches tall now, putting on flowers again, deer hammering it.
Well, we say it, I mean, all the products we talk about other than, just a couple, we're not paid or we don't get product for free. All this stuff we're using, we're buying. And that's interesting that you say that. I've used Durana for a long time, but I've been starting to use some other. I have not used the non-typical, but I've got some other varieties that we've done some things there at the house with that they're surviving drought conditions much better than some of the more well-known varieties.
Well, and the interesting thing is the soil that I planted the biologic on is the same soil type that's across the creek that my other clover field's in. And they're about the same size. So they're receiving the same amount of pressure.
And same elevation.
Yep. Same elevation, same conditions, but the Durana was it's in its 3rd or 4th year of establishment. So it's been been there a while.
You would expect that to last better than you would something new.
Yeah. So the biologic product is doing really well. I'm impressed with it. So much so that I'm going to get some more. I'm gonna plant some more areas.
Well, I'll tell you, we used biologic soybeans this year for the first time.
Oh my gosh!
And hey, deer love them. I don't have any anymore.
Well,
deer just absolutely, like you said, we had a complete failure. No fault of the beans.
No, but let me tell you this:
they just absolutely came in and
so
annihilated them.
I told you that I planted the late corn in the soybeans because the deer literally came in and clipped every terminal bud off my soybeans, and I was like, well, it's just a failure. After this rain, the corn is this high, and the soybeans are starting to put out more foliage, and they're there. They're still there.
Okay,
so they're coming back.
So they didn't bite the stems all the way off.
Yes, they did. That's what blows my mind. I don't get it.
That's
I've
strange.
never seen deer remove the terminal bud on a soybean and that soybean do anything.
So it had you're talking about
they clipped
bit
the stem.
Every leaf off.
When they were this high, they clipped everything off, and now they're putting on new leaves. I'll take pictures when I get home.
I'd like to see that.
It's unbelievable.
Normally, you bite a soybean off at the top, and she's toast.
That's what I've always seen.
Maybe I need to go back and check where we planted because
go check it out.
We walked out there, and I'm like, well, So much for this 8-acre field.
That's kind of what I
Just
thought.
Gone.
But, yeah, they're coming back. I'm surprised.
I'll go back and check.
That's funny. Well, I think we did all the damage we could do for corner clover, considering it was just 3 words.
And we spent, 15, 18 minutes on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing the best we can out here.
But clover.
Yeah.
Yeah, clover.
Here we go. We'll switch gears on this one. Question number 3. What would your perfect stand location be if you could put it all together as you wish?
Oh, I can answer that one. It's real easy.
It depends.
No, heck no. Mine's up in Kansas on a fence row right there where the creek comes.
He's got the perfect stand location, apparently.
Well, that's
Oh,
okay. Well, let's just, again, I know that's Midwest, but still, let's just kind of talk about that for a minute. What makes that perfect? Like in your opinion, what
Everything comes together in one spot.
So you've got
We've got it's a big creek bottom. We've got prairie ground on one side, so it's just open as far as you can see, really. And the creek bottom winds around, and there's a little fork off of the creek, and there is only the banks on that creek are extremely, extremely high. And the one place it's easy to go up and down is where that little creek chute flows in, where the fork is. And this just happens to, we're hunting. That particular farm is pretty small. So the landowner's home, I can see it from the stand. And so deer, look, they're not avoiding the home. Matter of fact, the deer I killed last year, they took pictures of tending a doe in their yard, a few days before I killed the deer. But so you've got that, and they've got a little fence around the yard, and there's activity up there. And just the wood lot comes right down. It's a big wood lot, and it starts necking down, and it necks down to about a 65 or 75 yard area right before you get to that point in that low spot in the creek. Every deer crosses that one spot. And the bucks know that that's where the does are crossing. And the buck I killed, I saw him 3 times before I killed him. They're crossing all those doe trails in there. They're not going up and down them. They're crossing, checking, and they'll go out. They'll continue down that creek, checking other crossing points. But it's dynamite. We found that particular spot hunting that same farm, and I just always noticed. I'm like, dang, you could see a tree down that was in there or over there from a long way. I'm like, there's always deer just they're funneling right up through there, and wanted to go see exactly why.
Right.
And we went over there, and I was like, dude, we moved that stand location there. This will be the 3rd year. I've killed 2 140 plus inch deer there.
That were both older deer. They were
One was
very mature deer.
Yeah, we think one was 8, and one the deer I shot last year we think was 8. The landowners had pictures, and we could kind of go back until what looked like just kind of when we could really identify that deer. He looked like he was a 3-year-old. So that's how we're coming up with that. And the other deer, I did tooth wearing replacement, and just kind of looked, and that's off. But obviously, I watched that deer. He was in his prime. He was one of the men around there. Deer weighed 283 or 84 pounds. I can't remember which
Slob.
one.
It's a big deer.
Yeah.
So he was a toad. But killed those 2 deer. Had a guy shoot at a deer that we had some pictures of that were 160-ish type, and we've killed a booner out of the same the same stand,
Right.
And this will be the third year that it's been in that tree.
Now, since we're the Southern U, disregard everything you just said and answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like what I would say is, especially thinking of the South, it kind of depends on the time of year for me. Like there are certain areas that I really like, except for the rut,
Right.
And then when the rut starts now, I'm going to switch gears and go somewhere else.
During the rut, you just want to see as much territory as you can.
Yes.
If you're a rifle hunter.
Right.
Yes, right. And that's I would answer the question differently based on whether you're bow hunting or rifle hunting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got a bow with me most of the time, and I like the
purist over
I'm not
there.
a purist. I just love it, man.
Hey, man, I'm with you.
I
I'm
just
with you.
Love it. I've got nothing against shooting with
Now
a gun.
back up.
The last 2 years, I've carried a rifle just a handful of times.
But you shot deer with a rifle.
Oh, of course I did. But, I mean,
Okay.
but I also shot lots of deer with a bow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I like, if I know that I've got thick cover that kind of transitions into food. And then if I can put some sort of terrain feature that is going to tell me, kind of like what he was talking about, his scenario, where it's going to at least encourage the deer to come through a specific area because it's just easier to get through. I mean, they're, you hear people say it all the time that deer are like people. They'll take the path of least resistance. Unless there's a reason not to, So if there's no pressure, no reason to, they're going to take those terrain features just like you would. And if there happens to be one of these features that leads from thick to food, whatever, then that's where I want to be. You know what I mean, for the most part. And then on the flip side of that, when you talk about the rut, it's really more about safety, I guess, is what I think of is travel corridors. In the South, I'm more familiar with like Jackson County than probably anywhere else. And there's a spot that I don't care if it's right now. If you went and sat in this particular tree I'm talking about, it's, like most of Jackson County, you have steep, just, inclines. You've got, sharp elevation changes and boulders the size of this couch or bigger everywhere. And what we call shelves or benches where it goes up and then flattens off. And then it goes up again and flattens off. And this particular spot up there, there's a lot of these big boulders around in the midst of some hardwoods and cedar trees that are just sort of spaced out. And I don't know, other than they just feel secure slipping through these rocks, but these boulders are on one of these shelves. And I'm telling you, you sit there today, tomorrow, next year, whenever, the rut, not the rut, early season, late season.
See deer.
They're going to slip through that. It's just because they feel safe. They can go slipping through those boulders and, working their way to wherever it is they want to go. And I've never, this is the only time I can ever say this, but I've never sat in that tree and not seen a deer. Ever. For years and years. It's crazy.
That's impressive.
And it's just a security type thing.
And where is this tree?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't get to hunt it anymore either. So, but it's just incredible. That's if they feel safe, they'll take it. But, Matt, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm bow hunting, I prefer to have some type of terrain feature, whether it be water or open field or something that I know deer are not likely to be walking down to my back, wind in my face, and I want a food source in front of me if I'm bow hunting. Otherwise, with a rifle, there's so many setups. I like to be able to approach a stand undetected from the downhill side, and when I pop up into my stand, I like to be able to be looking at deer or where I feel like deer will be, which we do a lot of food plotting here in the South, and generally in an afternoon, that's what I'm going to be doing is hunting a food plot. I just like to be able to get where I can see and have easy ingress and egress, to and from undetected.
That was going to be something I was going to bring up. Neither one of you said it, and that's the key to me, or for me now, as I've evolved a little bit as a hunter. I am more concerned about if I can get in and out without busting deer than some of the other factors of that location.
Yeah.
I may go to less likely spot to have an encounter if I know that I can get in and out without being busted.
Yep.
And then, figure out the way to tweak from there if you can.
Yeah, because I've got a stand that I know every single year, if I do my part, I'm going to kill a buck there with my bow. But if I try to go in there in the morning, I'm blowing everything out.
Yep.
They're already there. There's no way to – I mean, you can hunt it, and I've killed deer there in the morning, but understand you're probably going to kill a deer that was not there when you got there because you're going to blow everything out. Other deer may move in later in the morning, but I can go there in an afternoon with the wind right, and on a good afternoon, I know I've got a very good chance of killing a buck that day. Whenever I'm there, they're going to come in there and feed.
Yeah, I mean that's 2 years ago. Super frustrating for me. I've got a really small. Y'all have heard this story, but I've really small place that I get to hunt. That's not too far away from me, and same deal. There's so much sign and trail camera pictures, and like I know that these bucks are at that point in time were still bachelored, and there was like 6 of them, and I knew they were there. I knew when they were there, but I could not get there early enough. They were just always there. I tried it one time and got about 60 yards from the tree I really wanted to get in, and and there they go. And that was it. And it's really frustrating to not be able to hunt where you want to hunt.
It is frustrating because, like when white oak acorns are dropping, that's the place to be in October, November. And I know good and well if I try to slip into a spot like that in the morning, which is my absolute favorite thing to do in the morning in Alabama, is hunt white oak acorns. Like it doesn't get any better than that. But there's always a risk you're blowing deer that you want to kill out of there when you go in. And it doesn't matter if you go in at 2 a.m. or 6 a.m.
Yes.
They're going to be there.
Yeah, I was there way before like what I would normally get there. I wanted to try to beat them there and couldn't. It's just they could have even been bedded, could have even been laying down right there. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but yeah, that's about all the insight I'll throw at you there. Fourth question here. I thought this was a really good one. I'm glad. I can't remember who it was that asked this, but I really appreciate this question. Is the use of prescribed burns on smaller hunting tracts, 63 acres, worth it? I felt like yes, and I was just like, there's a lot of people I feel like that probably have this same question rolling around in their head, and it's like it'd be cool to kind of maybe spend some time talking about that too.
Now it's hard to get somebody like me or Matt to come burn it for you because we're so busy with bigger projects. But absolutely, if I owned a tract that size and I was wanting to manage it, I would do what it took to go get my prescribed burn certification so that I could do it myself. Have you some fire lanes installed, and don't burn it all same time. If you can break it up and burn it in a little rotation, that's what I would do. But absolutely, it's worth it.
So with small landowners, I mean, this is really doesn't matter how small or large your property is, but it is particularly important for small landowners. Make your property as attractive as you can for whatever species you're managing for. So if your property is 63 acres and you can provide something that your neighbors are not, good fawning cover, good browse, good bedding cover, then guess where the deer are going to be spending their time?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's absolutely worth it. If you've got 10 acres and you can burn it and you've got 10,000 around you that's not being burned, you've got something that your neighbors don't have.
Yep. I tell people when it comes to small acreage, study an aerial photo and figure out what's going on around you. And if you know your neighbors and they're on their places, that's even better. Figure out what the limiting factor is and have that.
Right. Yeah, that's good advice. But, yeah, I think it's worth it. I mean, just in the time that we've started this podcast, just the stuff that I've learned about things that you can do with small acreages, because I think I was one of them, I think, before we started doing this, that felt like, oh gosh, man, I don't have enough land to really make a difference, and what's the point, But it's really not that way. I mean, you really can make quite an impact. And
Well, you've got to be realistic about your expectations. Are you going to grow and hold mature bucks on 63 acres? No. Now, could you attract that buck or those bucks to you and hold them more than you normally would and give you the opportunity to harvest those bucks? Absolutely. Or could you raise a turkey nest or two?
Yep.
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, I think you said it a couple episodes back during turkey season, like what could I provide a successful nesting opportunity, you know, just because I may be limited in my amount of land doesn't mean I have to make a negative impact.
Right.
That's
You
right.
know what I mean? You can do stuff. So anyways, I thought that was just a cool question. I feel like this is probably a lot of people have the same question out there too. So appreciate that one. Number 5 here. Y'all will love this one. Can an overabundance of hogs hurt deer population on a property?
Hurt deer population, I don't know that they would hurt the overall population. I think they would reduce the utilization more than they would hurt the population.
Yeah.
So hurt your sightings and your hunting success, absolutely.
I think that's probably what he's getting at.
Yeah.
It's like, is there going to be less deer on my property because there's a lot of pigs?
From what I've seen initially, deer
Initially.
freak out when hogs first come on the scene. They learn, they adapt.
Where they've been
know,
forever,
Yeah.
the hogs and deer in the same fields.
Yeah.
Heck, hogs and turkeys in the same fields. Buddy of mine, Danny, has sent me pictures here recently with some turkeys around a feeder and just a massive boar come in, and turkeys just stand there and look at him. You know, they like, well, you know, chances of him catching me is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do my thing, and he can do his thing over there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, eventually they ease off because they're wanting to feed on grain spillage right there around the feeder, and that's what the hog's doing. But where they have coexisted for many, many years, I don't think you're going to see much of a problem.
Gotcha.
I still hate them.
I was going to say, that's the reason I was laughing is I was like, you guys.
That's
you
no
know,
reason not to kill them all.
Yeah.
I mean, what about, do you feel like, I know the answer to this, but I just want you guys to kind of maybe expand on it. Like, they're competing for a lot of the same food sources.
Resources. Yep.
So, I mean, do you feel like that is maybe what is the most negative factor there?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, it's that, hey, there's not enough nutrients
The
to go around.
The consumption of food resources or needed resources.
And I guess there's probably an impact on native vegetation too.
Absolutely, there
right?
is.
I mean, we're not allowing that stuff to
It's
come back.
very interesting. The areas that I have worked and lived in the past that just have had hogs forever. The habitat degradation isn't as bad as it is in new locations. And that's a hard one for me to answer. I don't know if that's they figured out the resources that they want to use more, and they're not quite being as opportunistic as they are selective when they've been on site for a very long time. But you know, we talk about hogs rooting up fields, and that's a big problem with ag. But the guy I referenced a while ago, Danny, he manages a monster hunting club down in southwest Alabama, and they kill phenomenal deer. They kill a ton of turkeys, and they've got hogs. And the son of a guns don't root up their fields. You can go down there and hunt, and the hogs are out there grazing in the field. They're grazing on the clover and grasses. Now, will they occasionally root stuff up? Yes, but that's typically more in the woods.
doesn't look like a heavy, like an airstrike hit it.
No,
That's what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah,
Right.
they will go and where there is, you know, if they get an infestation of nutgrass, they root that spot up because they're digging up nutgrass and eating the tubers. Or if there's a lot of insects in one particular spot, they're going to get into those grubs. But primarily, man, they're feeding on the acorns on top of the ground. Obviously they're rooting up the ones that squirrels and birds bury in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the damage type and amount is very, very different.
It's interesting. Yeah, so I guess to some degree it probably hurts, like you said, your sightings of deer on your property, hunting opportunities, yes, but population, maybe not.
Nah, I mean, look, hogs, they're opportunistic. Are they going to eat a fawn if they can just happen up on it, just laying there when it's a day or two old? Yeah, absolutely, they're going to eat it. Once fawns are up running around, they chase them down.
No.
Nah, not very often.
No, I agree. Let's see, number 6 here. This is before we ask it. I know this is not our specialty. It's not really what we made the podcast for, so we'll try not to chase too many rabbits. But I did think that this was kind of a cool question.
Us not chase rabbits.
I know.
Not possible.
I know this isn't your market, but if you are hunting public land, what are you looking for in a good hunting spot?
Somewhere with no people.
Yeah,
that's exactly. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of is like get away from everybody else.
And that's why I've hunted public land in Alabama. I've hunted in Kansas, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I've hunted public land, I've tried to find places. I look at maps and I'm like, I doubt a human has been here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I try to go. And typically when I get there, there's evidence that humans have been there. But
yeah, I think the size of the public land property is gonna lend itself to you hunting it differently.
Mm-hmm.
If it's large enough that the vast majority of people can't get deep enough or don't want to do what it takes to get deep enough, then yes, that's going to provide some good opportunity. Some of these areas that are 15, 20,000 acres, somebody is on every inch.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to figure out what people are missing. I used to hunt a couple of areas in Kentucky and we hunted them every year. And most of the bucks that we killed and deer that we killed, period, were within 500 yards of the road.
Mm-hmm.
People were walking by all these deer
to get deeper.
Yep. And the deeper you went, the more people there were. And out on the fringes, people weren't staying there because they're like, well, we know people's here and they're walking through here and they're blowing deer out.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if you don't bother them, they'll let you walk by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of bucks do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They will lay their head over and let you walk by and go on about their business after you're done.
I sat in a spot the last time we were in Kentucky on that particular place until it just got overrun with Southeasterners. Good Lord. I sat on a spot on a kind of behind a pond dam because it was warm and, expecting deer to want to come to water at some point during the day. And I could see the highway and watched 150-inch deer for hour and a half out just in a fallow field. He was within 100 yards of the highway, laying up under a single tree out there.
Climbed down and tried to sneak up on that rascal.
Well, I would have had there not been other deer.
Yeah, I'd have tried to put
close.
an old neek on him.
Yeah, but I think it depends on the property.
Yeah.
Well, and what I've seen is a lot of people from working on public lands for so long. A lot of people, they'll hunt till 8:30 or 9 o'clock and come out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you at the check station asking me what's been killed when people haven't even
Got down yet.
Right.
You should still be in a tree. And when people do that, it bumps deer around. So if you're a hunter who wants to be successful on public land, stay put. Hunt till 11, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd rather hunt on public land in the rut from daylight till 2 and go home and watch a football game that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to be more successful those hours than any other time. deer get used to human behavior and activity, and they're going to move when you're not there.
Oh, yeah.
So, if I could just offer a little bit of advice, sit longer than everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
sit all day or, hey, heck, go sit midday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get in the woods at 8.
A lot of the really big deer that were killed on Black Warrior WMA were between 11 and 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the only thing that I'll say here about that kind of, just a good spot is good sign is good sign, whether it's public or private. You know what I mean? Like if you can tell if deer are using something, they're using it. However, if you look at a map and you're studying and trying to figure out where to go, if something looks good, it probably is. And that means everybody else has probably been there too. You know what I mean? For the most part. But there's a lot of truth in like what Jeremy's saying is walking right past deer just because I'm too close to the road. There can't be any deer here. I mean, I had that kind of reality check last year, which of course it was an SOA hunt. So it's not, it is public, but it's not like anybody could just, roll up in there. But I was just frustrated. I felt like we had wasted a ton of time trying to access this property. It's blazing hot. This is the second weekend of archery season, in Alabama and South Alabama at that. So it's blazing hot. I'm frustrated. It gets to be past 3 o'clock. I'm not in a tree yet. Finally look around and go, look, I'm 25 yards off the road. Now there is white oaks everywhere right here, and they're dropping. But I don't have time. I'm exhausted. You know what I mean? I'm just going to jump up in this tree. Yes, and didn't even set up my big camera because I was that, discouraged and just had no confidence. Whatever. 5:45. Everyone comes just strutting through there like he didn't have a care in the world. So it happens, and so I guess that would be my only advice is. If the sign is good, then hunt it. And
don't leave deer looking for deer.
Yeah, don't
That's
leave
right.
deer looking for deer. It's a great way to say it. Let's see, number 7 here. What is your preferred method for prepping fields for planting? Parentheses here, crimp and drill, spray, disc, etc. I think we kind of touched on that on the first question, but if you want to.
I mean, if I have the opportunity, I'm going to drill. I'm going to keep from putting a disc in the ground. That's not always possible. And I'll even go so far as if I don't have to, if I have enough thatch on top, I'm going to terminate, whatever that is with some sort of herbicide and throw the seed out and then mow it or roll it down.
Gotcha.
I had rather do that than put a disc in the ground.
I'm getting where I want to be disc free.
Disc free.
Yeah, disc free.
Now you're going to get prettier results discing, putting seed out, covering it, or cultipacking it. Either one, but that's.
I have determined that the amount of steps it takes. Like initially, you've either got to terminate whatever's there through disking, mowing, herbicide, or all three. I mean, literally on some of it, it's so thick you have to spray it, and then you still have to come back and mow it, knock it down, disc it, break it up. But the amount of steps involved in planting is ridiculous. I mean, you're talking in some cases 6 to 8 passes with equipment by the time you're done start to finish. So I'm trying to get to where I'm leaving out as many of those steps as possible and still getting a good crop.
Gotcha.
But yeah, spray drill or drill spray. I've done both of
Either
those
way.
And both are working really great.
And the one thing people get hung up on is how fields look. And look, guys, I want my fields to look perfect. But the reality is we're feeding wildlife. We're not managing a golf course.
That's right.
And we're not producing commercial agriculture.
As long as you are adequately feeding your target species, then it's good enough. Now, if you're not, then reevaluate what you're doing.
Yep. But having that direct seed to soil contact and knowing your planting depth with a drill, that's
Great.
I mean, you get a better germination, and you kind of know what you're going to get.
Gotcha. A little bit more predictable.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes. Yep.
Cool. That's pretty straightforward. Moving on to number 8. What is your opinion on spraying down feed with pour-over ivermectin? I thought that was kind of interesting question if we were trying to limit parasites and that sort of stuff in your wildlife.
If I'm gonna go to that extent, I'm just gonna buy medicated feed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the need for reinventing the wheel. Does pouring ivermectin on feed help eliminate some parasites? Yes, but there's better ways to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm not knocking whoever's doing that for doing it. Mm-hmm. There's an easier way.
So what kind of cost difference is there if you're buying straight feed, whatever your favorite flavor is, versus this medicated stuff? Is there a big
I would
difference
have
in
to
that,
check. I can't remember. We bought some here recently, but I don't remember what it was. I mean, there's obviously an added cost, but it's not tremendous. Mm-hmm. I think I want to say it was only around $1 a bag. May have even been less.
No, really?
Yeah,
I mean
it was negligible. I mean, it really was.
And I go back to, in a healthy population of deer that's not overpopulated and good habitat, I have not seen a widespread parasite issue affect health. Mm-hmm. Are you going to have an occasional deer that's sick? Yes. Mm-hmm. Occasionally you see deer with heavy tick infestations or lice or mites, the mange, internal parasites, but it's very rare.
And if I was seeing that, that's when I would take those steps. If I wasn't seeing anything like that, I don't know that I would
even mess with it.
Yeah. Because like Matt said, I mean, you just don't run into heavy infestations across the population very often. I would say the one or two that you might see is the ticks or the mange. Mm-hmm. Mange is highly it's nasty looking.
No, it's awful.
I don't really know how to say it. It's just highly unattractive is what I was going to say. But I mean,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it just looks awful. But in reality, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I would. That's the point I would take is when I started seeing things. If I wasn't seeing anything, I don't know that I would go to the expense. Even though the expense is negligible, I don't know that I would go to the trouble.
Gotcha. All right.
And there's companies out there. Oh man, we got a local feed company in Birmingham that sells medicated feed. I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, it's where ours came from. And then Analogics has stuff.
Come on up in this place.
Actually, I don't know if he can. I think it may be locked. Yeah, it may be locked because that door won't latch.
We got a visitor.
Yep. Hang on just a second. Actually, I'll ask this one. Question number 9. What can be done to improve habitat on a timber lease?
All right. Yes, that question came from a guy that I've been talking to on AL deer. And his question specifically was, what can we do on timber company leases? Like, what are the do's and don'ts on timber company leases?
Yeah.
And what can we, and it really depends on the company itself. Hey, RL.
What's going on? Come on in, sit down.
But yeah, so when you don't own the property,
Just go over and sit
you are limited. Yeah, come on over here, RL.
No, we are, but you good.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
We're going to finish up this one, then we'll.
Yeah,
Is this the last question?
There's one more.
Okay. So,
and I'm going to answer this totally different than you do.
That's fine. No, yeah, you probably will.
Well, so for context, I don't know what you guys have talked about, but it's pretty common, at least here in the Southeast, that timber companies will have
the vast majority of hunters are hunting on timber leases.
Yes, it's huge tracts of timber, and so people will lease these or even sublease them sometimes, and this is where you get quote unquote clubs. This is where you get a lot of people paying for this lease, and they get a chance to hunt this property. So that's probably where this question's coming from. So all that's kind of context, and then go for it.
And unfortunately, on a lot of these timber company leases, depends on the company, but some of them will not allow you to put in food plots, or you put in food plots where they tell you can, or you pay additional fees for them. Some of them don't allow you to bait. So you are limited, very limited, and you're really at their mercy on habitat management. Whatever they do is what you have to work with. So I have used a lot of selective herbicides, mowing, seasonal disking, and things like that to kind of alter the ground vegetation. But prescribed fire, probably out. Not going to be able to do that. Mid-story removal, probably out. Not going to be able to do that. Food plots, hit or miss. It just depends. But what I try to get people to understand is any impact that they can make on the understory is a positive. So, like I said, those herbicide treatments, disking, mowing. Normally, I don't encourage mowing, but that's about the only thing you can do on some of those tracks. When they come in and they do a thinning, a lot of times they'll leave long, narrow lanes where they remove timber, and you can maintain those as natural openings.
Gotcha.
With minimal equipment.
I come at it. I come at this with a different angle, and this is coming from. I had at one time I managed over 1,000 leases in 4 states, and I would tell you, Matt mentioned the disking and mowing. If somebody called me at the office when I was in that position and said, "Hey, we want to do some habitat work. What can we do?" My answer would have been, "Not a damn thing. Hunt what you got.
Be happy with it.
Be happy with it, or we'll find somebody else to lease it." And really,
see, I can't stand that attitude. I just that crawls all over me because I've been told that too. I've been told that by timber companies.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, part of that is number one, liability. They don't want liability of you doing something like prescribed burning and it impacting them, because if a leasee goes out and sets a fire on a hunting club and is trying to do habitat management, and fire gets away from them, burns down a house, hurts somebody, or smokes out a road, somebody's killed, you know who's liable? The timber company.
Absolutely. Yep.
They're going to be the one named in the suit, and they're going to lose, and they're going to lose millions.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So that's part of that, and the other is, look, timber companies don't own land because they just want to own land. They own it to make money. It is strictly revenue driven. And if you're going in there doing something that's messing up that revenue stream, pack your stuff and get gone, buddy. The pine trees are number one.
Yeah,
pine trees are number one. You're little bit, and it hurts me to say it because I was one of the very drivers of our lease rates being insane in Alabama as compared to what they used to be.
At least he admits it.
Yeah, I was like, there's no more $6 an acre stuff anymore.
Look, when I went to work for the timber company, they asked me what I was going to do, and I was a hunter, and I understood what people were willing to pay, and of course I used that, and I was very successful at the business. But when I walked in the door, their leases were $4.
Thanks, Jerry.
$4 an acre.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Y'all want to send hate mail?
Yeah,
right there.
Right here.
Send it.
He's bragging about it, too.
I know.
Hey,
it burns me up.
The next week, $8.
That's awful. That's pitiful.
That is.
You got some splaining to do.
Explain it.
my responsibility was to positively impact the lease or the stockholders for the company that I worked for, was not to make my hunters happy. And I didn't. I made all of them mad. But you know what? You know how many leases were canceled, turned in because they weren't going to pay it?
Very few.
Less than 5%.
People are going to pay it.
Yeah, I never got below a 91 or 92% lease out rate. Generally stayed above 95.
Somebody's always going to lease it.
Yeah.
So on the liability side of stuff, like if you're the timber company and I call you and go, hey, if I get a licensed like burn practitioner or I get a forester, whatever, and I say I'm not going to do it, they are.
Nope.
Not happening.
Because still, if the fire gets out, they're going to get sued. They may win the suit because, everything was done the way it was supposed to do, but they're still going to have massive legal fees.
Right.
So it's just not worth it.
Gotcha.
And that comes, a large part of that is why, I mentioned the revenue from the pine tree side of things. It's also they don't want the liability of folks out doing things that maybe they don't know anything about or shouldn't be doing. Your average hunting club member, and I may be degrading some people here, but your average ones aren't folks that's living out in the country. They're probably hunting where they live or somewhere close by. They're not used to running equipment. They're not used to running chainsaws, cutting trees down, and they don't want accidents. And that's the reason they require the hunting lease insurance. Most companies now, I believe, I know we did, we carried the policy for all of our lands. The leasees just paid for it in their lease rate just to make sure. But while I was employed, timber company for 9 years, and we had it was either 4 or 5 deaths during that period.
That's scary.
So stuff happens.
Oh yeah.
So they're trying to. The reason they're telling you no to all these things is they're trying to limit their exposure to some type of liability.
Sure. Yeah. Which makes sense.
Or a loss in revenue.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what I was saying. Is it's kind of like, I don't know, if you were wanting to change the paint color of your truck, that if you do that voids the warranty on that truck, But I guess my question is like, well, okay, I'm not going to paint it, but if I take it to a licensed, insured professional to change that color, is that going to void the warranty? And they're like, yep, sure will. It doesn't matter,
And look, I think by and large, most timber companies try to manage their properties well. There's so many acres out there that, look, the roads are going to get in bad shape. Erosion is going to be happening. But that's the one thing we always tried to talk to our lessees about is, if it's a new track, we would always, or a new lease, we would always go out and we would fix the roads, make sure culverts were in good shape, and then we turned it over to the hunting club in good shape. Well, they should take pride in it and keep it up a little bit, not just wire the road out and call, the next year, gripe and moan, say, hey, man, our road's in terrible shape. Well, did y'all mud up and down it every time it was wet? Y'all use your tractor and box blade and fix any of it up? And most times, like, no, man, it's y'all's place. Well, it was in good shape when you took over the lease. Take a little pride in it.
Right.
But it's the leasing game is tough, and I understand the complaints. But the fact of the matter is, and folks can gripe and moan all they want. If they don't want to pay it, somebody else is going to. So that's why these companies have the attitude towards it that they do. They know that if you turn that lease over, it's likely going to sit on the market for 60 days, 90 days max, and somebody else is going to pick that lease up and likely pay even more than you were.
Right. That's good stuff. I mean, it's not the answers people like to hear, but
it's just the truth.
It is. Man, truth hurts sometimes.
And it does hurt. I mean, I went from being in that position, and look, I didn't like raising the rates because I was a leasee too. But I mean, Matt and I still lease timber company ground today, and I mean, I think we're paying
almost 12.
Yeah, nearly $12 an acre, and that's and
the excuse is they're trying to get the rate to the average private land lease rate. They're not even close. They're well above. They're setting the standard, not reaching the standard.
Right.
And anytime I've said anything about it, they're pretty crystal clear. Shut up and pay it, or we'll just terminate your lease and somebody else will.
That's it.
So
there's a couple companies, and shoot, I don't even mind naming them. I think Westervelt does a really good job. I think they're easier to work with. I think they take a little more care with their communication and their relationships with their clubs. I don't know how much Soterra that I used to work for still does. I know they don't own much anymore. Weyerhaeuser, love the guys at Weyerhaeuser, know a ton of them, but when it comes to their hunting lease program, they're turds.
Really?
It's bad.
Absolutely.
It's bad.
They don't care. And look, I get that. I cared when I was in that position. They don't. I mean, their opinion is if you don't lease it, fine, I'll lease it to somebody else.
Which I don't understand, because like where we're leasing, we live close by. So I literally treat the place like it's mine. Always have. Take care of the roads, grade the roads, bush hog, maintain and keep up everything. And to think, I'm putting all of my effort, my time, my diesel fuel into this, and your attitude is I don't give a flip if you do that or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it just don't sit well.
And there's a lot of smaller companies out there. I mean, Ala West has leases, John Hancock, a lot of the other insurance holders, Jamestown Forest, Malpas. I mean, there's a blue million of them out there. Some of them are better than others. It seems like the bigger they get, the more acres that they manage, the less they care about the relationship with their leaseholder.
Gotcha.
But that's easy to understand. I mean, you think about big companies.
Well, it is, and it's all about money too. I mean, if you get in the way,
absolutely.
If you're gonna get in the way of that, we'll have problems. All right, switching gears back to some deer stuff. I'm gonna pass my phone around. I was gonna pull it up on the computer, but it won't let me. So, if you're watching this, I'll have the photos on the screen where you can see what we're looking at. But this guy sent us a DM and said, "Not sure how to ask it. But these are pictures of bucks from one of my leases. Have lots of does, but not getting many buck pictures. But these, their horns look really weak. Would y'all know why?" And you can pass that around and kind of.
And I looked at the pictures earlier, and from what I can tell, you've just got two different age classes of bucks. Yeah. On that one property with the smaller bucks, they're just younger deer. They look like 2-year-old deer.
Yeah, that's initial. I mean, in the photos that we can see is a very, very small little snippet insight into what's going on here, but just based off of that, they look
and young. I will say this time of year, between June and let's say mid to late September, you better drop a camera in a buck's bedroom if you want to pick him up on camera.
Yeah.
You very well may have an older age class deer on that property, and they're just not detecting them on camera right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's just different age classes.
Yeah, that's young deer, and then the second picture was older age class deer.
And look, that comes with as Matt was saying, deer territory. Those mature bucks, you may have some habitat differences that you're not recognizing. Those mature bucks are going to demand the higher quality habitat, and that's where they're going to batch up at and hang at. And the younger bucks, you may see bachelor groups with young bucks in it, but a lot of times you'll see a lot of young bucks in a group, and then you'll see some older bucks that are running together. And if you see that separation, a lot of times you've got a resource difference there. and the mature deer are, they're hanging on to the more suitable area for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see that with doe groups too. If you have a dominant doe group, they're gonna demand the better quality fawning areas, better quality habitats, better food resources.
Oh, and we've all seen does, like you said, those dominant does run others off.
Absolutely.
Especially like in Alabama where you've got a feed site of some kind. And,
Oh yeah,
you get out of here.
They're getting a fist. Yeah, they're getting a fist fight in a hurry.
Absolutely.
Yes, they will.
So that's
they'll start slinging hooves.
Yep. Which is hilarious
It
to
is.
watch.
I've got pictures and videos. So I'm doing it this past week.
And if you've never experienced it, it hurts like the devil.
Oh gosh, they'll hurt you. A deer hoof will cut you.
Oh, listen, when Dad had his enclosure, part of the deal is when you sell them, you've got to dart them.
Yeah.
And then you've got to transport them and get them loaded up and stuff. And man, if you don't have those things juiced up just right,
they will come to life.
They will come to life,
Yes, they
and
will.
you better have those legs wrapped up because they'll hurt.
We were chasing a rabbit on this. We were trapping deer when I was at Auburn for a research project. I think it was actually a PhD project. Then I was just an undergrad. But Jordan Smith, a buddy of mine that was in wildlife with me, we went out with the graduate student. We netted some deer, and of course, we were using drop nets. So you got to go out on a capable deer and get it on the ground. Now it's tangled up in the net, but they will whip your ass.
That's right.
If you're not careful. And we got out on a couple of bucks, and we got the first one down quick, and just got him down. And once you get them down, you can lay on them and hold them down and give them. I think we were using Tilazol and Xylazine back then, and when you hit them with that, man, it don't take long. They're out.
That's a bad combo for a deer.
Yeah. But the second one, all he had in the net was his antlers.
Oh no!
So his whole body was out, and Jordan run and jumped up on him and got on him, and it went to kicking and bucking, and he ended up on his back holding him by the antlers, just riding, and all of a sudden the antlers just go.
Oh no!
And you can just see his face. He's like, "Oh no!" And he gets thrown off. That deer beat him to a pulp. I mean, turn around and it just hooves, just wearing him out. He had bruises and cuts.
No. Thanks.
Oh, it was hilarious. But a deer will hurt you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah,
You got to be careful with a wounded deer. They can hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a deer has nowhere else to go. Is going through you.
Yeah, RL, guys, y'all missed it. RL sitting there, he said, don't ever walk up on a deer with its eyes shut. And, yeah, if you're inexperienced hunter and you've shot a deer and you walk up on it and his eyes or her eyes are closed,
not dead.
That deer is not dead. And when
right.
you touch it, something is about to happen.
Something's happening. Yeah.
It may be good, it may be bad, but something is about to happen.
Yeah,
something's happening.
Yeah, get your phone out at least.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. Well, guys, that's pretty well going to cover all your questions. I know this is a little bit longer episode than we normally do, but thank you so much for sending your questions in. I'm sure we're going to do this again pretty soon. I really enjoy these. I know these guys do too. Just getting a chance to answer the questions you guys send in, and it's good to hear from you. It's good to know that people actually listen to this stuff when we put it out there. So, if you have a question that maybe you didn't get a chance to ask, I think we tried to cover all the ones that were sent in. So, but if you have something on down the line, feel free to shoot us an email. Again, that's info@thesouthernu.com, or reach out to us via any of our social media outlets. You drop us a comment or a direct message, any of that type of stuff, and we'll be glad to do that for you. And if you have habitat needs or anything like that, there's a room full of people here that can help make those things happen too. As far as your consulting and
shameless plug. Apparently, I found out this week that we're way cheaper than all the other folks.
Oh, well,
apparently so.
Yeah,
way cheaper.
Yes.
Jeremy says that, but then he talked about the lease jacking the
I
price
know.
of them.
I know.
Well, hey, that just leaves us room to go
way
up.
cheaper and provide a little more.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
in some cases.
I didn't realize what some of the other folks were charging.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Which and
More power to them. I'm glad they can get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we've actually done some stuff for some of you guys that reached out too. So, doing another one in August, I think.
Yep.
Thank you guys again for listening in and sending your stuff to us. We would appreciate it if you would like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to help us grow. Anything that you do, any kind of support you send our way is welcomed. So, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.